Reverend travels to many exotic lands, but always returns to us.
See you later, Rose. And I like the ending line, Patrick. Rose told me that you added that. Well, it's good to be here this morning. It's wonderful to see everybody's faces. I hope everybody's having a wonderful summer. And thank you to Bill and Elizabeth and Rose and Linda out there for helping being our greeter. This is called Finding Wholeness in a Broken World. Can everybody hear me? Leonard Cohen wrote, "The blizzard of the world has crossed the threshold, and it has overturned the order of the soul." So this sermon will be about finding our way home, whatever your way is, finding a hidden wholeness within all of us, and the integrity that comes from being who we are. Another quote from Leonard Cohen. Leonard Cohen was raised Jewish, but he also became a Buddhist monk, and he was very prolific as a songwriter, but also as an essayist. He wrote, "We are now living in a period of bewilderment, a curious moment in which people seek to find light in the middle of despair, and then often experience vertigo at the summit of their hopes. It is a spiritual moment also, and here is the danger. People will want to obey the voice of authority, and many strange constructs of just what authority is will arise in every mind. The public yearning for order will invite many stubborn and uncompromising leaders to impose it." Does it sound familiar a little bit? And he ended it with, "The sadness of the zoo will fall upon society." So first I want to talk a bit about that period of bewilderment that we're in. People yearning to find a voice of authority, to find a spiritual leader, some voice to believe in. I've mentioned Star Island many, many times from here, from the pulpit, because I grew up on Star Island, which is a Unitarian retreat. Every summer we attended a conference for many, many years. And I must, when I think back about all the great ministers I heard as a teen and then as a college student, one of my most memorable speakers was Robert Putnam, a Harvard professor. He wrote a book called Bowling Alone, which he became famous for. And it talks about community and the idea that, yes, people bowl alone. And recently, he was interviewed in the New York Times about a month ago, and he talked about social isolation again, especially social isolation for young men that are looking for a voice of authority and a sense of belonging. And he talked about social isolation as leading to a lot of really bad things. Bad for your own health, but really, really bad for our country, because people who are isolated, and especially he talked about young men who are isolated, are vulnerable to the appeals of a false community. And then he went on to talk about Nazi Germany in the 30s, and how a lot of the recruits were lonely young German men. And he said it's not an accident that today people who are attracted to our white nationalist groups specifically, are lonely young white men. Loneliness. It's bad for our health. It's bad for the health of the people around us. I was happy to see the group White Dudes for Harris. And I was happy to see our own UUCRT group that was started last month that are meeting for breakfasts. And I guess you can talk to Mark Lee about that if you want to sign up, or Jim. He talked about our culture today. When you get up, if you look through your Facebook page, if you scroll through social media, you're always challenged by that rift between your private persona and your public persona, your inner world and your outward projection. And when you study people who are vulnerable to joining groups that offer these superficial connections, you can ask, how do you bridge that gap between what's going on inside you and what's really being offered to you in society? And more to the point, how do you figure out what you need and what's offered? Parker Palmer, who's one of my favorite authors, wrote a book called A Hidden Wholeness: The Journey Towards an Undivided Life. And he wrote about how to live with the grace and integrity of being your whole self, the hidden wholeness. And he took that line from Thomas Merton, the Catholic theologian, saying that we all have a hidden wholeness within. As a teenager and as a young adult when I was in college, I learned that self-knowledge counted very little on the road to workplace success. I studied ethics in college, and I learned about all the great thinkers and their thoughts, a lot of exercise and data information. And of course, I value ethical standards, but in a culture like ours, which devalues or dismisses the reality and the power of our inner life, ethics can often become an external code of conduct, kind of an objective set of rules that we're told to follow, a moral exoskeleton, if you will. Sort of like going to church for me on Sundays in high school. I was raised Lutheran. I learned a lot about the Bible, a lot about Scripture, but it didn't sink deep within my heart. It didn't go deep enough for me, although it was wonderful to hear about all the wonderful things that have been written in the Bible. But the problem with this is simple. We can slip these ideas off very easily as we can put them on. So how do we go towards wholeness and not feeling divided? Where Parker Palmer talks about possible reasons for this self-divisiveness. He says that some people might be afraid of their inner light, that it might be extinguished. Or more so, they might be afraid that their inner darkness might be exposed. And it is easy to hide our true identities from each other. But in that process, it's really easy to become separated from your soul. And so you can end up living a divided life, so far removed from the truth we hold within that we cannot know the integrity that comes from being exactly who we are. Real self-esteem is an integration of an inner value with things in the world around you. And Palmer suggests that every outward journey of seeking to make the world more whole is incomplete if it's not accompanied by that inner journey. He writes that this is a journey way beyond ethics and information gathering. And of course, it's not an ideal. We're not perfect. So wholeness also means embracing part of brokenness. The divided life for all of us may be endemic, but wholeness can always be a choice. In Buddhism, what is known as the original nature, in Quakers, they call it the inner teacher or inner light. Hasidic Jews call it a spark of the divine. The Catholic mystic and writer Thomas Merton calls it the true self. And humanists see it as an indestructible and eternal part of our universe. And Parker wrote, it doesn't really matter what you call that spark within, the origin of it. No one can really credibly say the exact name or name it. But he did say, here is the ultimate irony of that divided life. Live behind a wall long enough, and the true self you tried to hide from the world will disappear from your own view. The wall itself and the world outside become all that you know. Eventually, you can even forget that that wall is there, and that hidden behind it is someone called you. There is that gap for all of us between our onstage performance and backstage reality. And if you want to create spaces that you feel safe for you, you can maybe understand why the soul so rarely shows up in everyday life. One particularly poignant aspect of this soul, or what Parker calls that inner life shyness, has to do with our understanding and our acceptance of our relationship with solitude. And he talks about the yin-yang of solitude. Solitude doesn't necessarily mean living apart from others. Rather, it means never living apart from yourself. It's not about the absence of other people. It's about being fully present to ourselves, whether or not we are with others. Keep in mind, not perfection, but staying in touch with yourself as much as possible in solitude, whatever your practice may be. Meditating or journaling or music or writing poetry. Solitude is about being in touch with yourself. Now, a little bit about community. Community doesn't necessarily mean living face to face with others. Rather, it means never losing the awareness that we are connected to each other. It's not about the presence of people. It's about fully present and open to the reality of relationship, whether or not we are alone. So wholeness is really an integration of that inner value with things in the world around you. And the outward journey must be accompanied by that inner journey. As I said before, community never is losing that awareness that we are all connected to each other, finding our way, a hidden wholeness, finding your own inner wisdom, whatever it may be for you, and a community that supports your own beliefs and validates finding your own truth within. So we speak and we hear so often of brokenness in life. And I spoke today about wholeness. Everyone is welcome here. Every one of us is beautiful just the way we are. Here, you don't need to be something more or something less. No holding back, no hiding, no trying to do more or be more. We all have inherent worth and dignity. Nothing to prove to the next person sitting next to you or to the children or to anyone. We don't have to try to be witty or quiet or more outgoing. Everybody here is beautiful just the way you are. Your hair, your belly, your limbs, your face. Each and every one of us are beautiful from each within and different as well, and beautiful in our own beautiful way. So this morning, please join me in centering and settling into this time and place as I offer this prayer of intention for our congregation. Spirit of life and of hope, be present with us this morning. We give thanks for all who are gathered here in this beautiful sanctuary with these beautiful people, and those Unitarian Universalists who graced the life of our congregation but could not be here today. We strive to support, strengthen, and build this congregation because it has meant so much to so many of us. We trust that it can embrace many more people who are longing for fellowship, for community, for celebration, for spiritual depth and inspiration. May we all find wholeness and embrace our solitude and embrace this community. Grant us wisdom for our time together today with clear speaking and deep listening. Let us be together in ways that will draw the circle wide and wider still. In this time this morning, may we be drawn closer to one another and closer to the heart of understanding and care. So may it be, and blessed be, and thank you for your presence, and thank you for listening. Thanks.